So it is that time. Once again, every 3 months, I go over my favorite things that I've enjoyed in that period of time. Over the past few months, I've had my fair few of video game, anime, and other television goodies that have been occupying my time quite a bit, so let's kick it off and showcase all the ones that I think you might enjoy, and just so happened that I loved myself. First off, we have Demon Slayer, started up last season, and of course carried into its brand new arc, the Entertainment District. The main thing that really shocked me with this arc is how it's one of, if not some of the best we've ever seen for a long-term fight. One of those fights that starts pretty big, but then over multiple weeks, never stops, never slows down, and by the time you reach the finish line, you say, this is the best Demon Slayer has ever been. The show just keeps getting better, in my humble opinion, and I'm very excited to see where they're going to take it in the next season. Now, this one might be a little odd since it only had 2 episodes come back, but 86 finally finished up its last 2 episodes after the delay. The best way to sell it to someone who's never seen 86, it's one of the best military stories that really showcases the brutality of war and what people are willing to sacrifice for it, and why sometimes soldiers can't run away from war even if offered a better hand in a life of luxurious peace. Ultimately, though, the way they ended it, it's one of those things that I'm fairly confident we'll see more 86 down the line, but if not, it's such a open-ended but satisfying ending, and giving characters who deserved a happy ending at least one for a little bit of time before shit hits the fan once again. You have maybe my new favorite comedy anime of all time, reincarnated into a total fantasy knockout. Imagine this, you have 2 bros. One bro thinks the other bro is always a lot better than him, he gets all the ladies, but said bro doesn't really enjoy said ladies. You get isekai'd by this goddess who likes cute shit and turns you into a cute anime moe blob girl, and the other character, Jingoji, stays as he is, and he acts as your weapon as you're in this isekai parody world where tropes are being bent and broken, but ultimately it's a romance between the 2 best bros and how they're unable to admit that they have fallen in love with each other. It's one of the funniest shows I have ever seen, even outside of anime. It constantly makes me laugh, and the story is surprisingly interesting. People raised an eyebrow or two when it first came out, but I've seen more and more people basically believing in the ways of the Total Fantasy Knockout. You have My Dress Up Darling, which honestly might be my new favorite anime romance thing ever. I mean, even though for a large portion you're not going to see anything too romantic between the main duo, to see the level of passion put into cosplay and creating said cosplay and the art of the Hina dolls, seeing 2 characters who just generally are comfy around each other and letting the others kind of break out of their shell. It's such a wholesome, horny, and hilarious time that it really is a staple of, if you're trying to be fan service, if you're trying to be cute, and if you're trying to be wholesomely hilarious, this show's probably a great template to go off of. More so than some of the other generic shows that are continuing to be referenced time and time again. Amazing production, hell of a good show. I could watch multiple seasons of this one. You have the conclusion of Ranking of Kings, which is Ghibli-esque show. It really starts off as a kind of fairy tale storytelling approach, and by the time you reach the conclusion, it's ultimately a story about forgiveness and redemption, but unlike a lot of those fairy tale Disney-esque movies, what makes Ranking of Kings so great is that you have 23 episodes to build up to that redemption, or that forgiveness, or that more peaceful outcome. And when characters survive or get a second chance, it doesn't feel like it's unwarranted. You understand this pain they went through, and it's hard not to stand on the rooftops and gush about Ranking of Kings enough. Watch this one. It's seriously some of anime's best. And of course, last on the anime chopping block, you couldn't have Ranking of Kings without Attack on Titan, my other favorite anime of all time. The final season, part 2, has been an amazing adaptation, not because they just took what Isayama drew in the manga, but rather Mappa fleshed out things that I thought were fine in the manga and became amazing in the anime. From characters like Connie with their voice actors elevating a character I was fine with into a character I absolutely adore. Titan forms that I thought were mediocre in the manga became fantastic in the anime. This is what Mappa was able to do with a proper schedule, and it's a bit of a shame that part 1 couldn't have the same dedication because part 2 knocked it out of the park. Switching it on up into video games, we have Pokemon Legends Arceus. I mean, this game threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting to love it quite as much as I did. I enjoy every Pokemon game, of course, but the catching mechanics and completing a Pokédex has never been more fun than exploring these lands. Yeah, the graphics and the overall look wasn't the best thing on the Nintendo Switch, but I never was more connected to Pokemon than this game. It was almost taking all the stepping stones in past games and taking the personality of new Pokemon Snap, meshing it into a game, And seemingly this is a staple of where the series wants to go from here with the announcement of the latest gen of Pokemon, and I'm very excited to see where they're going to take it, because completing Pokemon has never been more fun than what I just experienced. You have Mario Kart coming out with a surprising booster pack where for $35 or in that range, or if you have the expansion pass, it's free. You get waves of maps. So the first batch has 2 track packs, so 8 courses total, and the fact that we're getting an entire game's worth over the next year is honestly fantastic. Since Mario Kart, as it stands, this is the best we've ever had. I know some people are like, oh, I want the next game, but ultimately, by the time this booster course runs its course, no pun intended, ultimately we're going to have like half of all Mario Kart maps in one game. Just continue to expand it, maybe re-release it at some point with better graphics or something like that, but ultimately, these new tracks are some of my childhood favorites, and it's great to see it on the Nintendo Switch. Elden Ring came out swinging. It is, without a doubt, my favorite Soulsborne game to date. The open world is chock full of mysteries, dungeons. Honestly, the first area has more enemy variants than most open world games have in their entire open world. The combat is this nice blend of both the hardest and easiest the games have ever seen, where if you use things like summons and different spells, you can make it very, very simple, or you can go real balls to the walls hard and basically limit yourself with levels and equipment, and ultimately the player has a choice at how brutal this world will truly be. The boss is kicking your ass, you can keep going and memorize its patterns, or you can go level up and kick its ass later. Ultimately though, From Software is just continuing to improve their formula, and I'm really impressed with what they've delivered with Elden Ring, a game I perfected and honestly still want to continue to play with multiple playthroughs. And because of Elden Ring, I decided to go back to the other games I haven't quite beat in the From Software catalog, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This game kicked my ass. This is one of those things where I had to unlearn all my Dark Souls level gaming knowledge, because rather than blocking and dodging, you really need to learn to parry, but once you defeat certain bosses like that bastard Gentro, I haven't had that quite level of accomplishment in some time, and honestly, they just never miss with their games. Given that I never had a PlayStation until the PS5, I've been going back and checking out some of the big hits that PlayStation has had, and I got the Uncharted Collection as well as the upgraded version of Uncharted 4. I have to say, even though the first game I really wasn't a big fan of, the gameplay didn't age that well, similar to the first Assassin's Creed, story was fine and I enjoyed the characters. Once I got into Uncharted 2, it was hard to put it down. The action cinematics and how interactive this kind of giant theatrical thrill ride is some of the most engaging I've experienced, with incredible acting, a fun treasure hunting story, betrayal, sabotage, and romance. Seriously, I can understand why people have been hyping up Uncharted for so long. I'm excited to dig into some of the other big catalogs that PlayStation has under their belts now that I do have a PlayStation 5. And back at Christmas, I received Death Stranding, and over the first couple to 3 weeks of January, all I did was play Death Stranding. Hideo Kojima, the man who made Metal Gear, made Death Stranding. Some called it a walking simulator, but holy shit. The idea of being a delivery man in a post-apocalyptic world and how every parcel is so important to someone, as you then get these different mechanics like the ability to build roads. You basically, from the first few hours, you're stumbling over rocks, trying to carry all these parcels, trying to balance yourself, and then you realize you can start building roads. So do I progress the story, or do I spend 30 goddamn hours building every road imaginable, and then therefore make it so I can drive across these lands and not have to stumble ever again? The completionist in me had such a fun time going from wanting to bang my head against a wall because I couldn't navigate this world, to being blown away by how much I felt accomplished, by how not only would my character be able to explore this world better, other players would as well. Death Stranding is unlike anything I've ever played and is easily one of my favorite games of all time after completing it after a good 100 hours. Those may not know it, but Disenchantment is actually one of my favorite shows that Netflix has continued to release over the past few years. It's Matt Groening, you know him from The Simpsons, Futurama. It's almost like a medieval Futurama, but with a more emphasis put on a story. And given Netflix's approach to batches of episodes dropping at a time, the format just lends itself quite nicely. And the comedy between the show has always been very strong, but the interesting thing is that every time a new part of the show comes out, when you go back and rewatch the previous parts, you really can tell that they planned out a story with references of characters, and it makes it that much more enjoyable. If you haven't seen this show, I highly recommend it. It's very funny, it's very cute at times, very raunchy at times, but ultimately the story is without doubt, I think, the best Groening has ever done with his projects, and I'm interested to see how the story will conclude, given that it's not something meant to last hundreds of episodes, but more so have a very conclusive ending within probably a season or two. You had Cat Burglar, a very interesting interactive story that's animated like a very classics cartoon from the 90s Tom and Jerry style, and you have this trivia that will pop up as you're playing as this cat trying to rob an art museum. And it's not like the questions are overly difficult, like sometimes they do get a little difficult, but mostly it's because of how quick you have to pick one of the two answers, and ultimately you'll end up dying so many times. The cool thing about this is even though you will probably fail a couple of times before you reach the actual ending, you ultimately will see different paths every time you play it, and there's a good variety that playing with a friend and having them answer and you picking the wrong answer, it's honestly a great game with friends, and I honestly highly recommend it on Netflix here. Cat Burglar, good comedic cartoon story, but with an interactive twist. And lastly, Cuphead. Cuphead, it was one of my favorite games that Xbox released back years ago, as it has this very old school animation style with a very hard-hitting side-scroller gameplay. It always struck me that it would be a good animated show should they pursue it, and Netflix decided to fund it for I think like 36 episodes total, is what it's already confirmed to have. It already has like 12 episodes out. And seeing the two brothers, Cuphead and Mugman, just navigate this world in this very cute and comfy style, one of the most stylistically impressive shows out there right now. Whether you're a fan of the game or you've never heard of it, you're probably going to get a kick out of this cute animation. Overall though, the past 3 months have been very good with anime, video games, and everything else in between for me. I'm excited to see where the spring's gonna lead us. Either way though, I'm excited to see what's gonna happen in the next few months, but let me know your thoughts, whether you enjoyed some games, music, movies, whatever the hell you enjoyed down below. Let me know what you enjoyed, and maybe I might check it out myself. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.